Hello, and welcome to the Carnival of Macabre Miracles. I am the ringleader, Madame Mauve the Mauvelous. Come, draw closer, whilst other sideshows and circuses seek to dazzle you with mundanities dressed up as wonders. The paltry tarot cards, the often phony crystal ball, and of course the cavalcade of poor unfortunates with physical abnormalities, dressed up as monstrous attractions. But here at the Carnival of Macabre Miracles, we boast wonders eldritch and insidious, of a caliber unrivaled in any save the most diabolical collections of mad wizards or demonic barons. Consider, if you will, this simple chest, locked for all our safety. But what threat could a chest like this pose? Listen closely, and you may hear the scratching of fingernails from inside the chest. Know that this chest contains a bag of holding, one of the infinitely useful devices created for adventurers and thieves. The bag is a portal to an in-between space into which any number of items can be cast for easy transport and future retrieval. However, the bag's magics may be completely safe for objects, but what if a living being were to be placed within the bag? Now that is the origin of this grisly tale. As the story goes, there was once an adventurer whose party came under attack by a horde of beasts. Rather than stay and fight beside his comrades, this cowardly adventurer sought to escape doom by abandoning his party and hiding inside the bag of holding. As he crawled inside, deeper and deeper, he could still hear the screams of his dying comrades, and so he burrowed further into the bag until the sounds grew distant and finally ceased altogether. Believing himself safe, the adventurer tried to leave the bag, only to discover, too late, that he had lost his way amid a constantly increasing number of extra-dimensional storage spaces. As he continued to search for a way home, the strange forces of this magical in-between place began to warp his mind and body, elongating his limbs and turning his hands into claws. But as distorted and gruesome as his body had become, his mind grew even more warped, transforming the man into a monstrous creature. No longer the adventurer, he became known as the Bagman. And it is said that every night, somewhere in the land, he slips a long bony finger out of the opening of a random bag of holding and undoing the ties, he then emerges into this new space. And if he doesn't find his home, his rage bubbles over, and he drags the owner of this new bag of holding into the bag itself. Then the next day, when the poor soul's friends come to look for them, all they find are scratches in the floor leading to the bag of holding, as if someone had desperately clawed with their fingernails, trying to keep from being pulled into the bag to a grisly and uncertain end. This bag in particular was involved in several such disappearances, indicating that it may be a favorite of the bagman and a particularly dangerous object to possess. Listen, and you may hear the bagman scratching on the inside of the chest, trying to get out. But at least the victims of the bagman leave scratches in the floorboards to indicate the fate that has befallen them. The same cannot be said for those who vanish not just from the physical space, but also from the memories of those who left them. Observe this strange blob of white flesh suspended in crystal. It is thought to be the seed of a creature that can grow to terrorize whole cities. Come and give ear to the tale of the False Hydra. There are ghost towns in the gray waste, victims of false hydras. People do not revisit those sites out of fear of vengeful ghosts, or the paranoia that perhaps the false hydra is still there, the black rot at the center of the bone. But how would you really know? In gentler lands, you will find skeptics, erudite scholars who will stroke their chins and calmly tell you that there is no such thing as a false hydra, for such a beast has never been officially recorded. No, it is some confabulation, villages seized by some infectious insanity, or perhaps the subtle manipulation of some demon. But of course, these scholars, despite their best intentions, are quite dead wrong. Paranoia dominates any discussion about the false hydra. Everyone wants to know, yet is too scared to ask. Is it here? Is it in my town? Is that long, flaccid face watching me through the window, even now? False hydras seem to spontaneously originate, beginning like this, as indifferentiated masses of flesh. Supposedly they germinate in response to lies, and that each falsehood causes a false hydra to swell larger. The false hydra enters a town through a subtle method, fattened on worms and falsehoods. It grows upwards over days, weeks, years perhaps, but eventually It breaks through the soil, emerging in a basement from behind the jars of preserves, or perhaps it pushes its face through a broken cobblestone. At this point, the False Hydra is only a torso, presumably about the same size as a man's, buried somewhere deep underground. The neck grows up, until the head emerges from the ground. The head at this stage is only the size of a man's, and it resembles a man's head too, save for the fact that it is ghostly white, hairless, with thick deformities of brow and lips, and eyes that are not but jet black sockets, empty and wet. And then the False Hydra begins to sing. While it sings, it is ignored. It just creates gaps in your attention and then slips through them. It is subtler than any invisibility spell and far more reliable. The Hydra preys on people existing in our blind spot. A man walking along a deserted street may suddenly realize that the silence is more profound, as if loud noise had just ceased. There is a rattle as a sewer gate slides over rough stone. In the darkness, a fleshy, pale face, leering with undisguised hunger, lunges forward on a thick neck that slides out of the darkness like a sheath. 1 foot, 3 feet, 6 feet long, and then it bites him on the arm, drags him down that narrow gap, yanking and twisting and snapping the bones of the man to fit his body through that too small space. This is the only time the False Hydra is vulnerable, when it is eating. Because to eat someone, it must stop singing, which allows a brief window where another passerby might see it. If they are of courageous heart, intervene to try to destroy it. But the False Hydra is aware of this, and so to limit its exposure, the Hydra is thought to drag its unfortunate victims a short distance underground into a basement, sewer, or small chamber that it has excavated, that it might there devour them in safety. But at this point, the False Hydra would be little different from any other beast that preys upon mortal men and women. What happens next is the part that gives the False Hydra its true horror. For when the Hydra begins to sing again, now with the man digesting in its belly, all those family or friends of the consumed man, who should of course notice his absence, instead suffer the effects of the Hydra's song. For the singing of the Hydra massages their brains, smoothing out the wrinkles on their minds. The song erasing the memories from their soft heads, such that they will now not notice the man's absence, nor even remember that he existed in the first place. And in this way, the Hydra grows. Its neck stretches longer, and with it, its influence. The False Hydra's song hides the memories of the devoured victims in the same way that it hides the False Hydra. But it is not a perfect system. Wives will wonder why there are men's clothes in her closet. People will notice that no one has lit the street lamps these last few nights. Churches suddenly find themselves without a bell ringer. By and large, these gaps close themselves up. The wife will forget about the clothes as soon as she stops looking at them, or she will conveniently realize how her brother left them there the last time he visited. Or she will, on some level, recognize the wrongness implicit in the clothes and throw them away one moonlit night. Yes, she will confabulate powerfully and constantly. But part of her mind is cognizant of the disturbance. That part of her brain may become distrusted and sealed away. Yet that primordial cluster of neurons still fires. A little voice at the back of her head that whispers warnings in quiet moments. Can you feel the hair on the back of your neck standing up? Perhaps the False Hydra is looking at you even now, but you have not the eyes to see it. Yes, such paranoia, such imperfections create pressure. In the early stages, it feels like paranoia, especially in the sense that someone is watching you, because the Hydra is watching you, pressing its moony face up against the window and fogging up the glass. More severe symptoms develop as time moves on. Reminiscing becomes a stressful and uneasy experience, and so is avoided. Distortions of memory, confabulations pile up, identities become muddled, friends' faces seem subtly deformed. Human brains were not meant to bear this weight. Mundane insanities sprout like mushrooms, nervous disorders, and psychotic breaks. As the False Hydra matures, it grows more heads. The process accelerates exponentially. More blood on the cobblestones, more incongruities festering in the heads like gangrenous limbs, more empty seats at homes and churches that were once full. Will this monster's taste for blood ever be sated? Oh, dear heart, my dear heart, there isn't enough blood in all the world to slake its thirst. And yet, great though the False Hydra's thirst is, there is a being whose hunger easily eclipses it. I've shown you these two oddities, but without realizing it, a third has been before you this entire time. Cast your gaze to my throat and the jewel that adorns it, and hear a story about a young girl and the price and promise of curiosity. Hailing from a family of Yuan-Ti purebloods, exceptionally gifted with magic. The girl was enrolled as a student at the Celestial Academy of Clara Oriana, where in time she would surely have become a powerful wielder of the mystic arts. However, the girl had the misfortune of being 13 years old, and thus was at that awkward age where she was at once old enough to have outgrown simple, childish things, yet still too young to go on what she supposed were real adventures. And so, while she applied herself to her studies during class, her gaze would often wander to the windows, framed with the glimmering stars of the night sky without, or her eyes would drift to the site of the quaint little village that had been built in the shadow of the academy. And when all the other students had gone to bed, she would often stay up exploring around the academy, or slip out through her window and venture down to visit the town and listen to the old wise men tell fanciful tales at the local tavern. It was perhaps this deep yearning for adventure that drew it to the girl. For on one starless night, when the girl was up late in search of adventure, she heard a sound that was as strange as it was sudden. The best description that she could have given to describe the noise would have been to say that it sounded like someone playing notes on the rims of wine glasses. And yet, that would be like comparing a candle's paltry flame to the blazing majesty of the sun. The crystalline ringing, reverberating, tinkling seemed to crawl into her skull so deeply that she could almost feel the vibrations of the sound rattling her teeth. The curious sound seemed to be coming through her window, up from the little village down below, like a siren song luring sailors to the rocks. So it was that the sound played upon her curiosity and drew her to slip out of the academy and hurry down toward the village. She could see that a traveling carnival appeared to have stopped at the village, but due to the late hour, most of the attractions had closed their tents and shuttered their carts. So she flitted between the tents, chasing the sound, but it seemed to be leading her in circles, when suddenly she felt a hand on her shoulder. Surprisingly, she did not jump or cry out. It was almost like on some level she was expecting to be met. Yes, met by someone who could help her. The music still echoing in her brain, she looked up to see a genasi with skin black as ash, glittering here and there with glowing embers winking through the cracks, and hair woven of billowing gray smoke. He smiled kindly at her with a strange red glimmer in his lamplight eyes. Well, hello there. Didn't mean to sneak up on you, dear heart, but you seemed a bit lost, and the carnival is closed. Yet perhaps I can still help you. Allow me to introduce myself. The name is Mr. Cinder Soul. She simply smiled and told him that she was following a strange music and asked if he knew where it was coming from. To which Mr. Cindersoul chuckled and put his arm around her. "Ah, yes, I think I know just what you were talking about. What you heard, dear heart, was the music of the spheres. You're very lucky. Few living have ever heard the sound the planets make as they orbit, dancing through the darkness. Would you like to understand the sound better? It's quite miraculous, I assure you." The girl nodded, thinking dully, "Of course he can lead me. That's what he is for, to lead me to the source of the music." With Mr. Cindersoul walking right beside her, they headed deeper and deeper into the carnival and ducked to enter a darkened tent. In the dim light, she could see displays and cases showing strange and eldritch objects. It was in front of one such relic that Mr. Cindersoul stopped and pointed to a pedestal where rested a jet-black box without lock or embellishment, save for a strange symbol that looked like a red flaming ring surrounding a black sphere, a representation, as the girl would later learn, of a dying star. Feeling her hand inexplicably drawn to the box, the girl lifted the lid and beheld a blood-red jewel set in a golden star setting. Mr. Cindersoul explained that the gem had been fashioned from a meteor that had fallen to Earth centuries ago, having traveled a long, long way, originating from a star that glimmered just beyond the vision of those who dwelt on this mortal plane. "Go ahead," he coaxed her. "Since you heard its song, this clearly means that the jewel belongs with you." She reached out and touched the surface of the gem, which was strangely warm beneath her finger. Instantly, the shadows surrounding her were illuminated with thousands upon thousands of little glimmering stars, and she found herself standing in a void. Before her, there glowed one great red star, Hadar the Cinder Star, a celestial body, a cosmic entity, as old as time, whose unending hunger could never be sated, no matter how many stars and souls it devoured. It was then that the song seemed to change in pitch and form words in her head. It was as if the Cinder Star knew her deepest desires and was willing to grant all of them, but at a fair price. Perhaps if she had been in her right mind, she would have struggled with the bargain it offered. Maybe she would have thought of her family and friends at the school, how her new life would affect them. But the little girl had heard the music of the spheres, and once a mortal's veil has been torn away, no terrestrial craft can mend it, nor mundane relationship ever hold the same importance. So she swore loyalty to her new sovereign, the Cinder Star, was forever changed. The 13-year-old girl would never be seen again, much to the distress of her parents and younger brother. But far out, away from the shimmering towers of the Celestial Academy of Clara Oriana, a boldly dressed woman, seemingly in her 20s, beckoned the residents of a small town to draw near and hear of a marvelous carnival to which she was the ringmaster. You would have to look very deeply into her eyes, which were now aglow with Hadar's ruddy red light, to recognize any hint of that young girl. For Hadar had agreed to age her into adulthood and would keep her in her prime of life for however long she served it, granting her the power to protect herself and the opportunities to go on all sorts of adventures that she could possibly desire. And as proof of her contract, she would forever bear the brand of Hadar on the back of her neck, the flaming red ring with the circle pitch black, and wear its jewel upon her throat. Is it not reassuring, after a night filled with tales of woe and misfortune, to end on one that has such a happy ending? For surely the girl got everything she wished for. Hmm? Who was the girl? I can't say that I can recall her name, if I ever knew it in the first place. This is, after all, just a story. Once more, I am Madame Mauve the Mauvelous, and it has been my pleasure to entertain you at the Carnival of Macabre Miracles. I hope you will come again soon, for you have but scratched the surface of the many devious and delicious oddities that we have within the carnival's tents. A host of delights, sure to excite and terrify you. Until we meet again, dear traveler,